17 years ago, some choppers made their way to St. Hubert, a laboratory where dinosaurs were held captive and scientists conducted research on them. One of the scientists at the time was munching on a chocolate bar and ignorantly threw the plastic on the floor. Similar to the event in Final Destination, an air blew the plastic into the open door and inside a vent, causing a malfunction in the whole lab. This opened the dinosaur enclosure as the scientists ran for their lives, and as one was able to close the door manually. It turns out one of the scientists was inside, and as he screams for her to open the door, she froze on noticing the dinosaur behind him. On noticing it, he begs her to open, but she couldn't as the dinosaur grabs him and begins munching on him as he screams. The dinosaurs were on the top of the food chain for 32 years until climate change and diseases began to wipe them out. The last surviving dinosaurs settled on the tropical island closer to the equator, and every human was strictly banned from going there. The movie kicks off with Martin Krebs, who steps out of his vehicle and watched as a Brachiosaurus statue was unveiled. Getting back to his vehicle, he was startled by Zora, who was already inside. Zora recognized he was the CEO of a pharmaceutical company as he told her about his research and how he will be needing her services. Upon realizing they were going to venture into forbidden territory, she opted out. However, Martin convinced her to join by offering $10 million and mentioning that he would be bringing someone else along, despite the risk of getting caught. They arrived at a dinosaur museum which was about to shut down because humans do not care about these creatures anymore. They met with Dr. Henry as he explained the most dominant species of dinosaurs on land, water, and air. He further explained that drawing samples from them could be the key to heart disease. Dr. Henry, although knowing so much about dinosaurs, had never seen one of them, so Martin invited him to join them on their mission and get the chance to draw a life sample from them. Dr. Henry declined because of the legality, but later changed his mind and decided to join them. They flew 402 miles north to the equator. That's when they met Zora's friends, Duncan and Atwater. The prices were up for Martin because they have to go undetected, and as he agreed with the updated price, they were on their way. On the ship, Dr. Henry explained why surviving dinosaurs moved closer to the equator because it was warmer and enabled them to thrive. Thinking about how to obtain the samples without getting hurt, Atwater suggested a neurotoxin, which will cause temporary paralysis to the animal, and they will be able to obtain samples without them getting hurt. Dr. Henry wasn't in agreement with this, but had to do it since it was their only option as he taught them how to obtain the samples. Later, Duncan spoke to his friend Zora about how she was dealing with her mental struggle after her colleague died, and as it turns out she wasn't dealing with it so well, stating she even missed her mother's funeral. But they saw their new mission as a chance for redemption, a chance to get rich and live a good life. Meanwhile, a yacht was sailing. In it was Ruben, who was sailing, Isabella, his daughter, and her sister Teresa. Teresa brought her boyfriend Xavier along with them as Ruben informed him that it was his shift, but he didn't care and got back into the boat. Still sailing, they spotted a strange creature which Isabella mistook for dolphins at first, but something huge hit their boat. Their dad went down to check and stated it was something huge, and this made Isabella feared for the worst, but her dad assured her that they were extinct. They were still on it when suddenly the large creature hit their ship, causing it to capsize, and they fell into the river. They were shocked on seeing the creature as Ruben got to Xavier, who was still in the boat at the time and couldn't get out because the door got stuck. Ruben instructed Xavier as he went to get the radio and kicked the door so hard and was able to get out. They all got back to the top of the boat for refuge, except Xavier, and as he got out, he was chased by the Mosasaurus from behind, and on getting to the top of the boat, the dinosaur ignores them and swam away. Meanwhile, the crew were still on their way when they got the radio signal from Ruben as they argued whether they should be rescued or not. Ruben was stranded at the top of the boat with his children, and on spotting a boat nearby shot a flare and signaled them, and they were rescued. They were rescued by Martin's team, and as they explained, Dr. Henry was able to recognize the dinosaur as a Mosasaurus. Ruben wanted him and his family to drop off at the nearest port, but the crew didn't seem to be listening as they began tracing the signal to where the Mosasaurus is. They were able to find it and quickly got to work as the pilot and co-pilot moved in closer, while Zora picked up a gun loaded with a neurotoxin and equipped with an empty vial meant for collecting a blood sample. They were able to get closer as Zora shot and missed, and just when they thought the Mosasaurus had evaded them, it emerges again, and this time Zora was able to make the right shot as it paralyzes the Mosasaurus temporarily, and the blood sample was extracted. As it was extracted, the device shoots up as it's equipped with a mini parachute. It was able to land safely and was collected. They all rejoiced as the first mission was a success, as it remained 2 more samples. After a while, they spotted some huge dinosaurs heading towards them. It turns out those creatures hunt for the Mosasaurus as it begins attacking the boat. Atwater tried to stop them with a neurotoxic gun, but the creature attacked him from behind and ended him. This traumatized the little girl Isabella, who watched the whole thing. The boat tilted a little, and this caused Isabella to slide right down as her father chased and caught her, hurting his leg in the process. Nevertheless, he was still able to rescue his daughter as the dinosaur tried attacking her and missed. Duncan then decided to sail the boat to shallow water so the dinosaur wouldn't follow them. Meanwhile, Ruben told his daughter Teresa to call for help through the radio and send their coordinates. Martin, on noticing this, chased after her and tried to stop her, as they were involved in an illegal activity. They had a bit of a scuffle as Teresa slipped and nearly fell off, but she managed to grab part of the boat to keep her from falling into the water. She screamed for help, but Martin ignored her as she fell into the water. Her dad notices her, including her boyfriend Xavier, who dived into the water to rescue her. Soon Ruben, on realizing that the boat was going to crash, jumped with his second daughter, Isabella. The Mosasaurus hit the boat, causing it to tilt as they all fell into the river except Duncan and Leclerc the pilot, who crashed the boat at St. Hubert Island. Xavier was able to find Teresa as they swarmed to the island nearby, and soon Ruben and Isabella joined them. At the other side of the island, Zora and the others who fell into the river were able to resurface and reunite with Duncan. But the reunion was cut short as one of the dinosaurs captured Nina, the co-pilot, tearing her apart and taking her away as the others were horrified by what they saw. They began having double minds about the mission, but Zora was able to encourage them because she needs the money. Martin explained to them that they were in St. Hubert, a place where scientists performed gene mutations on the dinosaurs, altering their DNA and turning them into ferocious monsters. They didn't have any weapons to combat the dinosaurs, but nevertheless they ventured into the island to collect the 2 remaining samples. Ruben found a thermos pipe and, on figuring it may lead to a village, instructed the others to follow it as Teresa was still mad at Martins for trying to kill her. On the other side, the mercenaries had begun tracing the Titanosaurus to a valley nearby to retrieve the second sample. Ruben told Xavier and his family to find a stick which would be used to clear their path, and as Isabella went in search of hers, a little dinosaur pops out scaring her a little, but it was a plant eater and was docile as Teresa scares it back into the woods. The mercenaries were still venturing at night when Martin found a tag, and on looking up, he spotted a dead soldier and tried using a stick to retrieve his pistol. Xavier was keeping watch as the family slept, and as he went to take a pee, Isabella heard a sound which woke her. It was the little dinosaur from earlier, but this time she wasn't afraid and fed it as it came closer and lay beside her. Meanwhile, as Xavier was taking a pee, a raptor ambushed him and was about to take him out when it got hunted by a dimorphodon. In the morning, the mercenaries had arrived at the valley when they began hearing noises, and soon after, the Titanosaurus emerged in their numbers. It was a magnificent sight for them as Dr. Henry felt they were distracted, so they prepared to shoot the dart at the right time. It was mating season at the time, and as one of the Titanosaurus found a mate, Dr. Henry took the chance and moved closer, and as he touched it, he shed tears as he had taught people about them his whole life, but never had an encounter. Zora was able to land a successful shot as the blood sample was obtained and popped out, and Duncan was able to catch it while Martin placed it in his suitcase. The second mission wasn't a disaster like the first, and they had just one remaining sample to retrieve. The family were still on their way to the village as they let Isabella keep the little dinosaur to help her deal with her fears. Isabella placed the dinosaur in her backpack, and as they were moving, they fell into a pit and landed on the other side of the woods. The little dinosaur emerged from the backpack scared and ran off as Isabella wondered what scared the dinosaur like that. Teresa ventured further into the area and spotted a dead dinosaur torn apart. A dinosaur approached her and was about to attack, but suddenly ran off. Teresa looked behind her and spotted a huge T-Rex sleeping. Her family signaled her to return quietly, but she first of all got into a small shelter nearby and took the raft she found. She dragged the raft closer to the water and inflated it only to realize that the T-Rex is gone. She began paddling to her family, and as they all got into the raft, they spotted the T-Rex behind them and it began chasing them. They paddled deep into the river, but as it turns out, the T-Rex could swim as it made its way to the raft and capsized it. The T-Rex hunted Ruben first as it almost bit into him, but Ruben was able to escape and made his way to a narrow side of the river with 2 pillars, and soon the others joined him except for Isabella, who was still stuck underneath the raft. The T-Rex noticed her presence and bit into the raft, but luckily Isabella was no longer there as she was making her way to where her dad is, and the T-Rex chased her. Isabella was able to get to the narrow point on time, and as the dinosaur couldn't get through, it gave up and left. Meanwhile, the mercenaries had gotten to the top of the mountain. They didn't want to risk getting the sample from the flying dinosaur, so they approached its nest to get the sample from the eggs, as the pilot was tied with a rope and he dived down. Dr. Henry and Zora joined him, while Duncan and Martin stayed up. Dr. Henry and Zora arrived at the nest and spotted the eggs as Dr. Henry placed the dart carefully and began collecting samples so as not to hurt the embryo. There, Dr. Henry suggested the idea of giving out the samples for free to help the world rather than to Martin to enrich themselves and few others. Zora entertained the idea, and while they were still at it, the mother dinosaur arrived, and they were alerted by Leclerc, who spotted it, but it was too late as the mother dinosaur got into the nest and attacked. Leclerc tried distracting the dinosaur, but to his peril as the dinosaur focuses on him. Duncan and Martin began pulling his rope up as the dinosaur chased, but before he got to the top, the dinosaur had already caught and ate him as Martin and Duncan ran. The commotion caused Dr. Henry to fall off, but Zora held a rope to keep him stable. He reached for the sample and popped it, but the rope couldn't hold any longer, so he fell off, but some trees were able to cushion his fall, and he fell safely into the river. The others joined him, and also the sample landed in a mini parachute. With this, the third sample had been retrieved, and it was time for their escape. Meanwhile, Reuben and his family were in the raft as they followed the pipe and arrived, but as it turns out, it wasn't a village. The mercenaries also arrived at the facility, and Zora, on noticing footprint, figured Reuben and his family must have been there and went in search of them as Martin tried to stop her because the helicopter is on its way. Zora was able to find the family as Teresa was mad at Martin, who left her to die. The others were shocked to hear this, but Martin held a pistol so they couldn't approach. The suitcase was passed to him as they decided to wait for the helicopter. While waiting, the generator suddenly turned on, and just at that moment, they got ambushed by mutated dinosaurs. They made their way to the tunnels and got separated. Dr. Henry was with Duncan. That's when he realized the facility they were in was a lab where they performed the inhumane experiments. Martin and Zora hid under a vehicle as they were attacked as Martin shot continuously and couldn't land a clear shot. The family were together as Isabella found her little pet dinosaur again when she got attacked. She hid in a refrigerator as her father caused a distraction so she could escape. The helicopter eventually arrived as Duncan told the doc to ensure the pilot doesn't leave while he goes to inform the others, but the doc got halted by a dinosaur nearby. Martin and Zora also noticed the helicopter as Martin slyly tricked her and got into a truck and drove off as she had to take refuge in the woods until the dinosaurs were gone, then she got into the tunnel. The pilots couldn't find anyone and were about to go back when Dr. Henry spotted them and decided to act fast as he got to where flares were kept and shot one. The pilots noticed it and were heading back to the facility. Dr. Henry called out to Duncan that the helicopter was heading back. That's when one of the mutated dinosaurs caught the helicopter and crushed it, leaving the doc in shock. He got back to the tunnel with Duncan and the family where they mapped out a plan to get to a nearby boat. They were moving through the tunnel and reunited with Zora, who spotted the dinosaur behind them and shot it using the pistol she obtained from Martin. They got to the end of the tunnel, which was closed, and as they tried to get it open, a dinosaur approached them. Thinking fast, Isabella was able to get out through the little hole in the wall and opened the door from the outside as they all got out and closed it before the dinosaur got to it. They were still dealing with the dinosaur on the outside when Martin arrived with his truck and crashed in front of the dinosaur. The dinosaur ate him alive as he dropped the briefcase, and Zora grabbed it as they head for an exit. On getting to the boat, the dinosaur followed as it set its eyes on Isabella. Duncan, on noticing this, used himself as a distraction as he ignited a flare, and the dinosaur followed him deep into the ocean. The boat was activated as they all got in and were about to leave. That's when they spotted another flare, and as they rowed towards it, it was Duncan as he was able to survive. In the morning, they were on their way back, and as they pondered on what to do with the samples, Zora then decided to use it to save the life of everyone. The end. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you love movies and animation, subscribe to It's Mythical for more mind-blowing recaps like this. Goodbye.